Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette. Today I'm here with Tanner Guzy from Masculine Style, and in this video we discuss how you can tell your personal story with style and using clothing. Tanner, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So tell us more about this concept of having a story that you tell by dressing. I think it's foreign for most men.
Yeah, I think that most guys, when they decide that they're going to start dressing well, a lot of guys kind of get into the idea that the end goal is to dress well, or that's like you want to have the reputation of being stylish or being a style guy, and that's the end goal. But ultimately, that's typically not. What you want to do is you want to be able to communicate something that's deeper or more meaningful. And so you want to be able to signal things like where you fit within your tribe, or even who your tribe is, or what your personal taste is, or all these other things that's storytelling. It's being able to have somebody look at you and be able to make an assessment, which people do. Whether or not they should is irrelevant. They do. They make these snap judgments about you. Absolutely. And it's you being able to communicate what you want them to understand about you based on what you're wearing.
Okay. I mean, you know, some people like dressing for dressing sake.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's totally fun. It's like a hobby.
Think
I would think that I fall in that category.
I think you definitely fall into that category.
I simply enjoy it, and that's okay. But just because I do it for that reason doesn't mean it has different impacts, as you mentioned.
Right.
The perception by others.
Well, that's part of your story.
Exactly.
People know that you're a hobbyist in menswear based on the way that you dress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it also, you know, it evokes something. For example, I was at the airport coming here, and you know, a guy in front of the TSA line was like, you know, you look really sharp. And I remember what it used to be like when you dressed in the 60s, you know, and all of those things. Like, things come up, people think about it, they project things onto you, they think you are more competent. And I always notice that when I'm like traveling and I'm some places, you know, I'm not from there, but people always come up to me and ask me for the way or ask me things because they automatically assume that I know simply because I'm dressed well.
Right.
And it's just interesting to me how these things really have such a big impact as a first impression. It's probably subconscious. People don't necessarily seek out and think, oh, this guy must know it because he's well dressed. It's just they feel it.
It's the halo effect. Yeah. It's something in our subconscious that just kicks in. Yeah.
Okay. So if someone is like not familiar with this concept of telling a story, how would you think they should start?
I think one of the easiest ways is to just be aware of what's going on around you, whether it's the media that you're consuming or the way that you see other people dressing, because the thing that's so interesting about this to me is, okay, what you wear to the airport and what that evokes for us now. If you were to wear that in ancient Egypt 2,000 years ago, you would have no benefit by wearing that clothing. It wouldn't say anything. It wouldn't communicate a better time, a more sophisticated time. There would be no story that was told in that other than who's this weirdo wearing these weird clothes that have nothing to do with the way that we dress. But if you pay attention to, especially the way that men have dressed historically, in any culture, in any point in history, the vast majority of these kind of stories or themes that men have been interested in telling each other are things like how strong we are, or how much courage we have, or how good we are at something, or how loyal we are to other people around us. And so if you can kind of work within those universal themes and tell stories that fall within that based on what your clothing is, then you can start to line up with what all those different historical storytelling aspects are. Because even the guy who's in cargo shorts and flip-flops is somehow trying to tell the story of, I'm secure in my masculinity, I don't care what I look like, I'm a rugged American individualist, and your opinion of me doesn't matter. Now, he may think that it's those things, but that's a subconscious thing, but he's actively telling you that story, because most guys who dress like that, if you were to tell them to wear what you're wearing today, they would resent that. They would be uncomfortable. Whereas if they really, truly didn't care what anybody thought of them, they would be just as comfortable wearing what you're wearing as they would be wearing what they are. Yeah. But that's part of their story, that's part of their uniform and their identity that's wrapped up in their clothing.
Okay. So let's take a step back
Mm-hmm.
and assume, like, what are the pillars that you think are most important when it comes to telling a story?
I think the biggest ones, in fact, I break them down into 6.
Okay.
And I'll give you a couple of the biggest ones because a lot of them can really kind of get a little bit more detailed. But the 2 biggest ones are going to be tribe and then your personal taste. If you can combine those 2 elements together, then you'll always dress not only well and appropriately given the different environment, but you'll always have it be something that's communicating who you are as a person, that's able to tell that. So tribe is basically the people around you.
Okay, so does that mean, let's say I'm a doctor, would that be part of my tribe, or is it that I'm white, or is it that I'm religious and Christian or Muslim?
All part of it. Because again, take what you're wearing now or what you wore to the airport, for example. If you were part of a motorcycle club, that tribe has a very different set of aesthetic requirements and expectations. And what you wear now would be inappropriate for that tribe.
It's like a punk, if you're a punk rocker.
Exactly.
You're a rocker.
Exactly.
You know, oftentimes very specific guidelines that evolve in the group to kind of separate you from others and include you in your tribe or group or whatever you want.
Exactly. Think about high school. When you dress like
never
your
went to high
friends.
school.
Okay. But you know the stereotypes, right? You think about all the kids who they're all sitting in different parts of the cafeteria and they're all dressed like each other, but they're not dressed like everybody else because it's this very fundamental, like subconscious way for us to signal who we are and also who we aren't. And not only that, but then you can get even deeper where there's hierarchy within the tribe. And so the guys who are high status within the tribe can dress a certain way compared to the guys who are mid-tier, compared to the guys who are low status. And none of this is conscious, at least not until we teach guys about how it's conscious.
Or you have like the Catholic Church, right? Where it's
Exactly.
like very specific, like what you can wear at what level.
Right.
Now, one could also argue, though, that let's say the high school example is good because, you know, people wear, let's say, Adidas sneakers, right? And that's what they have, and everybody has the same. One could argue it's kind of a lack of self-confidence that makes you want to dress like your tribe. How would you reply to that?
I would say that we're all guilty of that to some extent. And I don't think that having confidence in who you are and being concerned with the opinions of people who matter are mutually exclusive. I think that having confidence in who you are and being concerned with the opinions of everybody in the world, there's some conflict there. But take the group of men that we've been with all week, for example. Your opinions matter to me when it comes to style because you've earned my trust, you've earned my loyalty, you guys are experts in your field, whereas some guy at the airport who's going to call me out for wearing loafers instead of sneakers, I don't care what that guy says of me. He's not part of my tribe. But we have a tribe very much within here, and you have earned the right for me to care what you think.
So it also has to do with respect.
Yes.
Like if you respect other people, you just have their authority in a different regard than if it's a complete stranger or someone that you don't think very highly.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And so you can do that where everybody wears the same sneakers, and yes, there's a lack, especially in high school kids, there's a lack of individuality, and that's why I tell guys to balance it out with taste. It can't be 100% tribe because then there's no personality, there's no individual identity.
It would be a uniform.
Exactly. And that's why militaries have uniforms. That's why dictatorial governments have uniforms. That's why because you want the collective to be greater than the individual. Whereas in your life, there needs to be a balance of both.
So taste, how do you develop it in your opinion? What are the pillars to get there? Because a lot of people are like, taste, I don't know, it's hard for me. Some people are further along that path and they have dabbled into taste, but a lot of people feel like it's subjective. You know, they go to an art museum and then see something from Miro and think, oh, my 5-year-old could do that. And others think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right.
How would you say, or what do you think can help men to develop this taste, or how would you define it?
I think that that's really where that confidence comes in, because it's a willingness to go against the tribe in some regards, where you can say, everybody in my tribe loves that art, and I think it looks like a 5-year-old did it, or vice versa. It's being willing to say that the emperor has no clothes, or go against the grain in any regard, and be willing to kind of stand your ground on some things. What I think a lot of guys, and I've certainly been guilty of this myself, is when it comes to our clothing, a lot of times we will assume that the way to have taste is to, or personality in our clothing, is to inject more. It's to take the uniform and then add something else that's unique to it. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of times taste can also be being willing to take some things away. Mm-hmm. It's being willing to say, I'm not going to wear that, or I'm not going to do this, and I'm just going to distill it down even further. I'm digesting everything that I'm being given and only choosing what I want, as opposed to I've taken everything that the tribe gives me and then adding more on top of that.
That's a good concept. I also think sometimes, you hear people say, oh, he has good taste.
Mm-hmm.
And you could argue that it's just reflected or connected to your tribe in the sense that people assume that their taste is good taste.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, usually when you hear somebody say he has good taste, they're saying, I like his taste. We have the same taste, or he's better at my taste than I am. But it's not something that's totally ex-tribe or something completely different.
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. So apart from tribe and taste, what are the other pillars?
So you can look at things like your body. Mm-hmm. Your body's a huge one, whether it's your coloring or your contrast or just the way that things fit. A big one, location. We were talking about this before we started recording, but we're here in LA. This is a very casual environment. It's a very laid-back town. It's warmer than what you and I are used to.
Well, it's warmer outside. I mean, Minnesota it gets warm.
Right.
But it's like we're in LA. I wear a polo shirt.
Exactly.
It's a casual interview. We're sitting here in front of hot lights in a warm room.
Exactly.
So it's just the most comfortable thing to wear. Now, it's also stylish in the sense that, it's colorful. Like, you contacted me and asked, hey, can you recommend some polos? Because you wanted a specific shirt color and these things. So it's not like it's a sloppy decision.
No.
It's just adjusted to the environment you're in at that time.
Exactly. And that can even get even more micro than we're not in Minnesota or Salt Lake, we're in LA, but it's even things like I'm at the gym. Exactly. And you're not wearing the same thing to the gym that you're wearing when you're at the opera, which is not the same thing that you're wearing when you're at work. So location is a big one. And a lot of times we can get into this mindset of I have to wear the same thing everywhere, otherwise somehow I'm being inconsistent or incongruent.
Yeah, you're not selling out by adapting things and have different clothing for different purposes. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, when I'm at home, I wear a sweater and maybe my TV jacket.
Yes.
Which for a lot of people looks goofy or maybe more like a dinner jacket.
They're like, what, a TV jacket?
Exactly. And for me, it's like, it's comfortable, it's warm, it's kind of my style.
Right.
And so this is about as casual as I get. Mm-hmm. For others, that may be as formal as they get, right? So it just depends on where you are.
Yep.
In general, though, I always feel that people assume that dressing up and getting more formal is something that doesn't suit them. Mm-hmm. And I understand, if you were a car mechanic, a suit is not functional, it's not appropriate, especially not during your regular workday. Can you wear it after hours? Totally. But what do you think, why do you think most men assume things are too formal for them and they naturally gravitate towards the more casual end of the spectrum?
I think that that's something that's relatively unique to, it's been within the last 60 years. Mm-hmm. You look at the baby boom generation, everything that happened with the Cultural Revolution of the 60s, and it was a rejection of the discipline and the formality and the Christianity and all these other things that kind of had established Western civilization up to that point. Mm-hmm. And the baby boomers basically gave that all the middle finger, and the suit was the ultimate representation of that. It was the easy aesthetic scapegoat that perfectly represented all the things that they were rebelling against. And so our generation grew up with that being the bad guy. That was the man, that was corporate America, that was selling out, and that was the complete antithesis of being comfortable, being who you are, being unique. And so we have all this wiring and all this programming that's gone into us for decades telling us that suit is bad, or suit is sellout, or suit is corporate.
At least in the U.S.
At least in the U.S. And I think a lot of cases, even in kind of Western civilization in general, but definitely way more focused in the U.S. And it's wrong. There's no reason that it has to be that a suit is bad, or that a suit is wrong, or that the only time people wear one is because they have to.
Absolutely. And it's also, I think, when you wear a suit, or when I wear a suit, you get lots of compliments from people, and they couldn't tell you why. I mean, they see the suit and they automatically assume someone put more thought into their outfit, and you stand out a little more. But if you show people different things and ask how attractive people are, they will say that the person in a suit is more attractive than the person in a t-shirt.
Right, because the whole reason the suit even became such a dominant article of clothing is because it evokes things like discipline and power and self-respect and respect for other people around you. And those are things that are universally attractive. And so the fact that subconsciously we see all that when we see a man wearing a suit, of course we're going to think somebody's more attractive when they're wearing something like that.
So you mentioned body, and we already did like a video about body type and how to dress for that. So maybe let's move on to the next pillar.
The next one is effort.
Effort.
Yeah, because there are some guys like you and I who we're hobbyists. The idea of having a really big and a really full wardrobe is awesome, and it's fun and it's exciting, and there are a lot of benefits that come from that.
It's not for everyone though.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you don't have to think that in order to be well dressed, in order to have your clothing work for you, that you have to have a massive wardrobe. You can follow like Baron, what he does with the lean wardrobe. You can, Baron from Effortless Gent, follow his lean wardrobe principle, or follow other guys who are very Spartan in what they do, and they can still be just as well dressed with few items that they wear because they're versatile, because they work together. And neither one of those is better or worse than the other. It just depends on how much effort you want to put into it.
Yeah. And I mean, there's always a certain degree of effort, right? And you can put a lot of effort into things and have a very minimal wardrobe. Like I remember when I went on a trip around the world, I was gone for 105 days. And I had to think about, okay, what am I going to bring that can fit into one suitcase? So, you know, it's not overly heavy, we can travel, and I can adapt to different events, cultures, climates, and just degrees of formality.
What a cool challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
What a cool challenge.
I should make a video about it.
Seriously.
About, you know, how to pack like that and the thought process that goes into it.
Yeah, because that's way more than overnight or for a week.
Exactly.
And to be able to fit, that's a cool challenge.
Yeah, all right. So, apart from effort, what's the next one?
Okay, so we've talked about body, we've talked about tribe, taste, location, and effort. And the other one that's in there out of those 6 is your archetype. And so what I teach is that there are 3 major archetypes, and it's based on how you interact with the world around you. So they're rugged, refined, and rakish. And it's pretty easy for us to think about, so the rugged are guys who are auto mechanics, they're blue collar workers, they're cowboys, they're lumberjacks, they're guys who their primary interaction with the world around them is based on their physical interaction with the world around them. You've got refined, which is very much where you fall into. It's men who are in upper echelons of society. Their impact is based on their monetary or their social connections and those kinds of things. And then the third one, the rakish archetype, is guys who their whole way of interacting with the world is by rebelling against it. They're the guys who like to break the rules, who like to get attention, who like to be loud, who are comfortable being in the spotlight in that regard. And if guys know where they fall within one of those 3 archetypes, if you're rugged, then yes, there are times when it's appropriate to wear a suit and that needs to look good on you, but a suit probably isn't the mainstay of your wardrobe. You don't need a dozen of them.
Exactly.
Or if you're rakish, then you don't want to just wear simple staples and dress in a way that fits in, because that's inconsistent with how you interact with the world. You need to be wearing bold and loud stuff and getting attention and leveraging your clothing to help you with your other goals in your life.
It's a bit like Justin Jeffers from the Finance Gentleman.
Yes.
Like he just already combined this Canadian field jacket, which was somewhat like floppy, kind of cool, and he combined it with more dressy elements, such as I think he had chinos on, maybe even a jacket, I'm not sure, maybe a shirt and loafers. So, but it's definitely a standout thing. He also had a Carpincho leather jacket, something that says, hey, I'm different, hey, I'm bold.
Well, what's so cool about the way that he did it is that he still combined, so a Canadian military field jacket, I mean, talk about rugged, you know, like totally for the rugged guy, but because it's kind of sloppy on him and he's wearing it over refined clothing with chinos and loafers and an open button-up shirt, then so he's got rugged, refined, and rakish all thrown in there. And that's such a good point, because most men may lean primarily towards one, but we all have elements of the others in us. That's why you lean more refined, but you definitely have elements of a rake in you, because in this modern society, wearing seersucker trousers with a pleat and a linen bow tie and a green sport coat, there's an element of a middle finger up to the current status quo of society by doing that. So yes, it's refined, but it's also rakish in that regard.
Yeah, and you can also show, hey, it can look good, because sometimes people think, oh, I cannot wear that. But once they put it on and they look at it and they're like, oh, I'm positively surprised, or I didn't realize I could combine green with so many things. They had just never thought about it because they weren't exposed to it, and they didn't dare to take that next step and get there, basically.
Yep.
But that's a good point. So within these 3 points or 3 types, rugged, rakish, and refined, you can develop your personal taste and you can be more like one. And it, as we said, you can just figure out where you fall in the spectrum, and it doesn't have to be black and white.
Right. Yeah, you can combine all 3 of those, and then especially from there you can get into tribe. Because guys who are in the military versus cowboys versus survivalists versus lumberjacks all fall within the rugged archetype, but very different tribes. Their clothing has very different functions aesthetically and from a function perspective. And so you can't think that all rugged guys dress the same, all rakish guys dress the same, or all refined guys dress the same, because that all gets distilled down into tribe from there. And then you have guys who are combining and pulling all of these different things together, which is where taste comes in. And then it gets even deeper based on your location and your efforts. And so that's why all that combines together to truly tell a story of who you are with your style.
Okay, on your website, The Masculine Style, you go much more in depth and teach men about all these principles. Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so what I've found is that there are guys like you who you do so well when it comes to the actual execution of stuff. I don't need to make a how to tie a bow tie video. You've already totally nailed that. There are other guys who have totally nailed that. But when I first came onto the scene, I found that there were not a lot of men who were talking about the stuff that we just did, being able to understand the underlying philosophies, the sociology, how masculinity is communicated through our clothing, how we tell stories. And so I dive into that kind of stuff. And then what's really fun for me with other readers or viewers or anybody else is most of my stuff is just asking questions and then forming these ideas with my audience as we go. And so as you guys watch this stuff and you start to think, well, I like this idea, but that doesn't make sense here. Tell me that, because we can refine these philosophies and understand this better so that we can teach more men how to tell a story with their clothing.
All right. So if people enjoyed this conversation, where should they go?
So I have my own channel on YouTube. If you just look up Tanner Guzy, that's Guzy. That's my biggest, most pushed format for being able to talk about this stuff. And then the other is the site, which is masculine-style.com. And there I actually have an archetype quiz. So you can take it, it's 8 questions long, and based on your answers, it will tell you if you're rugged, refined, or rakish.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Raphael. Seriously.